Hello beer tubers and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of Hoppets, today in a new setting because I moved. And I've alluded to this in some videos and I might make an update video. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe once I get the studio set up, because I will have a place to make a studio where I can have lights and gear and everything ready, so it's just go shoot instead of having to get everything out and set up and get stuff out of the living room. So it's been busy days. We've moved. Nice big house with room for us and the kids instead of a tiny apartment. So it's going to be nice having a house and having space and having a beer place to store my beer, and just like everything was getting so cramped. So yeah, it's awesome, but we're still not completely done getting it settled because we got loads of stuff everywhere and stuff, but we're done painting and like most of the bigger things. So mainly now it's just getting furniture and stuff like that set up and all that usual moving stuff. But first review in the new place and first beer in a long time. Well, actually not, because I had a sample of one of the new Bad Seed beers earlier, because I'm also on paternity leave, so I haven't been to the brewery in a while. But we're checking out some beers that I brought back from the trip to Franconia. And these are from a brewery that we visited. These are from Brauerei Knoblach in Schammelsdorf, and we're trying their Lagerbier ungespundet and their Räuschla Märzen beer. So I've actually reviewed this one already, and I reviewed the Märzen. And the Märzen was around the time when I started getting interested in lagers, but it was still, I think in the video I said like, for a lager, this is amazing. I was like, for a lager. I was still being judgmental towards the style. Like, it's drilled in your head that beer, craft beer, when you're a beer geek, and I think everyone has been there, beer needs to be explosive and intense and like super fruity craziness, all this stuff. Like, people just like more saturation, more flavor. But at one point you come full circle and you start to appreciate other kinds of beers, as I'm doing now. Like, some of my favorite beer styles, a lager these days. Almost all I want to drink. And again, I'm done holding back. I am done holding back. I've held back on grades on beers like this for so long. But still, I think, yeah, 85 I gave this one or something. Still pretty good, but not as high as maybe it deserves. Let's see. I was enjoying them a lot when we had them at the brewery. I had both of these. I actually had a taster of both in the tour video I did of touring Franconian breweries, but I wasn't like as floored as some of the other Franconian breweries. So we'll see what we think of these. Fairly fresh. Again, they give them super short shelf lives, so these beers down in Franconia, because they want you to drink them really, really fresh. Usually it's like 2-3 months, something like that. Depending on the brewer, of course. Some are 6 months, and some are even a year. It really depends on also what they do to the beers. So it says that they're craft brewed. According to the German Reinheitsgebot, they're brewed with water, barley, malts, and hops. And that's all the info. The ungespundet is 5.3%, and the Märzen Räuschla is 5.4%. It almost sounds like Rauchbier, Räuschla. But they're in Schammelsdorf, which is outside of Bamberg. It's one of those small cities. There's loads of small cities with fantastic breweries that you have to visit if you're in the Bamberg area and touring Franconia. Franconia is not just Bamberg. There's so much more to Franconia. All these small, quaint towns. So, ungespundet Lagerbier you'll come across all the time down there. And basically, it's unfiltered, unpasteurized beer. It's most places just called an ungespundet Lagerbier, but if you look it up in terms of the style, most people will categorize this as a Kellerbier or a Tricklebier because it has a lot of stuff in common. Those styles are also very obscure because they are very different depending on where they're made, and there's so many parameters that can be part of it. Some are unfiltered, some are slightly filtered, some are fermented without pressure, some are not. It really depends. The general thing is it's fresh young beer, kind of. This one says ungespundet, and that means that it is primarily fermented without pressure. So the spund is where you close and do pressurized fermentation. Fermenting a lager without pressure will produce more character from the yeast, and usually they'll cap it in the end to just generate a little bit of CO2. But to get really clean lager beer, you often ferment under pressure. And also the big thing is lagering for a long time. But I think we should start off with the ungespundet 5.3%. Wow, the lacing now I washed it away, sitting on the glass, that looked marvelous. So yeah, it pours a nice, slightly hazy golden yellow color. It looks much more copper here. Like, actually, what is the true color? I think that's more or less. It's more yellow in the glass, but it definitely has some copper orangey tones to it. It could be because of decoction mashing, maybe a bit of Munich. It's quite different. Some brewers do decoct, some don't. Some just do German step mashes. But yeah, let's check this one out. See if it's as good as on tap. Oh, Franconian lager is so tough to beat. Like the purity and the quality of ingredients shine, and the craftsmanship. Like no off flavors, no nothing, and then just pure, clean, crisp, refreshing lager. That smells fucking dope. There's some, like, I think there's a bit of a yeast character to it. Like, there's some stewed, bright fruitiness, almost like a little bit like pears. There's also like a soft, nutty note, like lightly, and that could be from decoction or something. But loads of bready malt and lots of freshly baked bread. This like intense toasty note too, and a good amount of hops, like slightly peppery and spicy mostly. There is a grassy tone too. There's maybe even a slight hint of toffee. It smells really good. Let's try it. Cheers. Wow. So wow, I did not remember this being that bitter. Franconian lagers, man. Like the best way to experience these are going there and getting them yourself so that they're quite fresh. Like I have quite a lot to get through, but they're just still tasting so banging. This is like most of the time the beer I want to drink these days. There's good lager, there's shitty lager, and then there's like great lager and the world class, of course. This is in the great category. I definitely like this much more than when I had it on the brewery at the brewery. But the brewery was also a slightly weird experience because some people were scolding us a bit for having a camera there and shooting. Although I didn't film them, I tried to only film myself. But I understand not everyone wants to be on camera. So I think we were a bit like when we're sitting with the beers because it felt like everyone was looking at us. But it's nice to enjoy them at home. Because it's wonderful. It's fantastic. When we were at Wagner, people there were like, oh, you're going to Knoblach. That's really good beer. And it is. And when this is airing, if you live in Sweden, in Stockholm, you need to go to Som Franciscana because they have this entire month, I think, or from February, or I can't remember exactly how it is, but for quite a long, or is it 2 weeks maybe actually only? Doesn't matter. They have a Franconian festival with loads of Franconian beer. You can pour beer yourself from from barrels, like the small barrels, either from wood or whatever the other material is, which is usually only used for really fresh beer, and also some on draft. And they change all the time. They have a list online if you look up the bar. And Knoblach and a lot of breweries, some of the best breweries in Franconia are represented with their beer, which is crazy. Like, I never knew that existed. That would be so much fun, but it's actually cheaper for me to go to Franconia than it is to go to Stockholm. So might as well just go to Franconia. I also think it's a shorter trip, unless you're flying, but... Look how this is just going down like milk. This is wonderful. I don't think it's as good as Zentner. Zentner has more layers and complexity. It's a bit more softer. But I like that this is more hoppy, but really peppery, really spicy. Big bitterness digging in on this. Like, I did not expect it to be this bitter, but it's really nice. Soft, doughy as well. Bready malt character. The nutty note is not too apparent on the taste. Toasty, but there's like some rustic flavor to it as well, which could be from decoction mashing. Almost like a bit of bread crust type flavor, toasted bread crust. The hints of toffee, there on the aftertaste. There's that nuance that's like a slightly rustic grain flavor, which could be a touch of Munich or again decoction. There's a bit of like a biting, spicy, bitter, almost herbal edge to it as well. So like herbal, spicy, not so fruity, in terms of its hop character, but it really suits the beer and those kind of like slightly more complex malt characters. I better stop because I'm going to be done drinking that anytime. let's move on to the Märzen. So Märzen is 5.4%, and this one we also had. And at the brewery, this was the one I liked the most. So pour is a very similar color. It's just slightly more golden hued. I think it pretty much looks the same actually, but it's stronger and it's brewed. Usually Märzen are brewed for, you know, the Oktoberfest season and all this. And lots of breweries, of course, also do them year round. But there's very big variation in Märzen. In general, there are stronger beers and around the 5.5-ish territory. In general, they're stronger, but they can be both slightly pale, kind of copperish like this, or darker in color, that's smoked but Schlenkerla's Märzen, for instance. So it really varies a lot from brewer to brewer how the color is and how malty it is. But yeah, this looks nice. This has also got a little bit of haze. You can also see, I think this might be unfiltered as well. So looks great. White head. Let's check out the aroma. Yeah, that's more rustic, much more malt character. Like this one seems like it's a bit more maybe for the hop heads, whereas this one's definitely got a very layered malty nose. This has definitely got the presence of like kind of nutty notes, kind of one of these rustic artisanal nut loaves I've talked about. Big, chewy, like fresh Munich malt character. Very malt centric and very clean smelling. Like I think the other one maybe had a little bit more of that soft fruity yeast character. This is a bit more clean. And then also like if you compare to Sintna has a bit more yeast character going on in their beers than these. But that's not necessarily a bad a thing that's a plus or minus. Like I think it depends on what you prefer, but this also smells banging. Really toasty and really intensely bready. And the hop character is a little bit similar, but I think there's a touch of floral to this as well. Let's try it. Cheers. Fuck, man. I just fucking love Franconian beer. It's so good. This is a little bit sweeter, making it feel more full-bodied and rich. It also makes it seem more like kind of like I don't want to say like desserty, because it's not like a really sweet beer, but it just has like a slight more sweetness to it that almost makes you think of like what are breads called with sugar? Do we have any breads with sugar? I'm just trying to think here. There's just like a little bit of sweetness, almost like if you had like a bit of sugar on bread, or if you had like, not honey because it doesn't have a honey sweetness. Maybe it's more like a toffee caramel thing. I'm thinking, is there any breads that are like that? There's probably some breads that are to the sweet. Oh yeah, like what are they called? Like in Japan, you can get these sweet breads. Oh, it's not Hokkaido milk bread. It's not sweet. But there's like these rolls that are really fluffy, and then they've often got like sugar-coated insides or flavored insides with like these lines in them. I can't remember what they're called. But there's a little bit of like one of those, like because it's like a sweet, slightly sugary, like caramelly, bready flavor, but it's not necessarily like cakey. But definitely a bit more floral on the hop character. And then nice bitterness too. It doesn't dig in as much as the ungespundet, but I think that's mainly probably just because it feels like it's maybe a little bit sweeter, so it doesn't feel as bitter. Really well lagered, super clean flavor profile to it as well. Just like a joy to drink and a fucking crusher. Like I could drink this just by the bucket. I'm enjoying these a whole lot more at home. But I think also the reason why is because when we were at these breweries, was the final day of traveling around Bamberg, and we were many beers in. We were in dire need for a break from beer, so maybe that's why I'm appreciating it more. But yeah, these are fucking awesome. Really, really good. I don't think they're world class. I don't think they're as good as Sitnas beers, but it's really damn close. Just fire lager. So in terms of a grade, let's score them the same, like 93, 94, something like that. It's really close to being world class, both Märzen and ungespundet lager. Or Kellerbier. If you want to drink the best Franconian beer, you need to go outside of Bamberg and visit some of these small town brewers that are just producing so much legendary, awesome beer. Oh, I'm glad we got some of the best home with us. So if you guys had either of these, let me know what you thought of them. Knoblach, a brewery to check out, that's for sure. And as always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and Twitter and Instagram. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I want to say cheers in the ungespundet. And the Märzen. And see you guys in another beer review.